You wrap the tape, you tighten the fitting, and somehow it still drips. Sound familiar? The problem is not your plumbing. It is how you are using that little roll of Teflon tape. After 3 decades of fixing leaks caused by this exact issue, I am going to walk you through 10 mistakes almost every homeowner makes with Teflon tape. Stick around for number 8, because that one surprises even experienced DIYers. And the bonus tip at the end is one most pros will never tell you for free. The first mistake, and honestly the most common one I see, is wrapping the tape in the wrong direction. Here is why this matters so much. When you screw a fitting together, the threads turn clockwise. If your tape is wrapped counterclockwise, the fitting literally unravels the tape as you tighten it. You end up with shredded tape bunched up at the base and zero seal where it counts. The fix is simple. Hold the fitting so the threaded end points away from you. Then wrap the tape clockwise around the threads, pulling it snug as you go. Think of it this way. You want the tape to tighten onto the threads as the fitting turns, not fight against it. Once you get this right, you have already eliminated the number one cause of tape-related leaks. The second mistake that catches almost everyone off guard is using Teflon tape on flare or compression fittings. This one is tricky because people assume every threaded connection needs tape. That is just not true. Flare fittings seal metal to metal with a cone-shaped flare pressed into a matching seat. Compression fittings use a small brass or nylon ring called a ferrule that crushes down around the pipe to create the seal. In both cases, the seal happens through direct contact and pressure, not through thread sealant. When you add Teflon tape to these fittings, you actually prevent that metal-to-metal contact. Worse, the tape can make the connection feel tight before the ferrule or flare has fully seated, tricking you into thinking the job is done. If you're working on a water supply line under a sink or connecting a gas appliance with a flare fitting, leave the tape in the drawer. The third mistake is simply not using enough wraps. I have lost count of how many leaking joints I have taken apart, only to find one sad little wrap of tape barely clinging to the threads. One wrap is almost never enough. For most standard plumbing connections, you want a minimum of 3 wraps, and in many cases 5 or 6 is even better. The key is to start at the second thread back from the end of the pipe and wrap toward the end, overlapping each pass by about half the width of the tape. You should be able to still see the shape of the threads beneath the tape when you are done. If the tape is so thick that the threads disappear, you have gone too far. But for most homeowners, the problem is not too much tape. It is barely any tape at all. By the way, if you are finding this advice helpful, you should know it is just a small sample of what I have put into my new guide, The Ultimate Plumbing Playbook. It is packed with step-by-step instructions for hundreds of repairs that can save you thousands. To grab your copy, you can scan the QR code on the screen right now, or just use the first link in the description below. All right, let us continue. The fourth mistake on our list is using the wrong tape thickness or type. Most people grab that thin white roll from the hardware store and call it a day. But Teflon tape actually comes in several different versions designed for specific jobs. The standard white tape is the thinnest and works fine for basic water supply connections. Yellow tape is thicker and rated for gas lines, which is important because gas codes in most areas require a tape or sealant specifically approved for gas. Pink tape, sometimes called heavy-duty or commercial grade, is denser and wider, making it a better choice for larger pipe threads or rough fittings where thin tape tears easily. There's even a green tape rated for oxygen lines in medical settings. Using thin white tape on a gas connection is not just a bad seal. It can be a code violation. Take 10 seconds to read the label and match the tape to the job. It makes a bigger difference than most people realize. The fifth mistake is stretching the tape too much or too little as you wrap. Teflon tape needs just the right amount of tension to do its job. If you barely pull on it and let it wrap loosely around the threads, it will bunch up and fold over when you screw the fitting together. That creates gaps in the seal and almost guarantees a slow drip. On the other hand, if you stretch it too thin, the tape loses its thickness and its ability to fill the tiny gaps between the male and female threads. You want the tape to stretch just enough that it conforms snugly to the thread profile without becoming see-through. A good rule of thumb is to pull with steady, gentle pressure, roughly the same effort you would use to tear off a piece of masking tape. Let the tape wrap itself around the threads naturally, and you will get a consistent, reliable seal every single time. The sixth mistake, and one that can cause real headaches down the road, is covering the first thread at the end of the pipe. When you start your wrap right at the very tip of the fitting, tiny pieces of tape can shred off and get pushed into the waterline as you tighten the connection. Those little bits of tape travel through your pipes and end up clogging aerators, fouling check valves, and restricting flow in places you cannot easily reach. The solution is to leave that first thread completely bare. Start your wrap on the second thread back from the open end and work your way toward the pipe away from the opening. This keeps loose tape out of your water supply while still giving you a full proper seal across the threads that actually do the sealing work. It is a small detail, but it saves a lot of frustration later when you are trying to figure out why your faucet pressure dropped. The seventh one on our list is using Teflon tape when pipe dope would actually be the better choice. Tape works great on clean, standard-size threaded connections, but it has its limits. On larger fittings, say anything above 1 inch, tape alone often cannot fill the wider thread gaps well enough to stop a leak. Rough or slightly corroded threads also tend to tear thin tape before you can even get the fitting hand tight. In these situations, pipe joint compound, also known as pipe dope, gives you a thicker, more forgiving seal. Some professionals even use both together, wrapping tape first and then brushing a thin coat of dope over it for extra insurance. If you have ever fought with a stubborn leak on a water heater nipple or a galvanized union, chances are good that switching from tape alone to pipe dope, or a combination of both, would have solved it the first time. The eighth mistake, and this is the one that surprises people, is reusing old tape on a fitting you disconnected and reconnected. It seems harmless enough. You took the fitting apart to check something. The tape still looks fine, so you just screw it back together. But here is what actually happens. The moment those threads engage and compress the tape, it deforms to match the exact thread pattern of that specific connection. Once you break that seal and unscrew the fitting, the tape has already lost its shape and its ability to fill gaps evenly on the next attempt. It takes about 10 seconds to peel off the old tape wipe the threads clean, and apply a fresh wrap. That small effort is the difference between a leak-free joint and a slow drip that shows up 3 days later inside your ceiling. The ninth mistake is ignoring thread damage before you ever reach for the tape. Teflon tape is designed to fill the microscopic gaps between healthy, clean threads. It is not a repair product. If your threads are cross-threaded, corroded, cracked, or stripped, no amount of tape is going to save that connection. Before you wrap anything, take a few seconds to look at the threads closely. Run your fingernail across them. They should feel sharp and uniform, with no flat spots, no burrs, and no visible corrosion eating into the peaks. If you spot damage, the right fix is to replace the fitting or the nipple entirely. Trying to tape over bad threads is like putting a bandage on a broken bone. It might look okay for a moment, but it will fail, and usually at the worst possible time. The 10th and final mistake is over-tightening the fitting after you have applied the tape. This one causes some of the most expensive damage, because Teflon tape is a lubricant as much as it is a sealant. It reduces friction between the threads, which means the fitting slides further and tighter with much less effort than a dry connection. If you crank on it with a wrench, the way you would without tape, you can easily crack a plastic fitting, split a brass valve body, or strip the threads right out of a galvanized coupling. The general rule for most residential plumbing connections is hand tight plus about 1 to 1.5 turns with a wrench. That is it. If it still leaks after that, the problem is not tightness. It is one of the other 9 mistakes we just covered. More tape, better technique, or a switch to pipe dope will fix it. More force almost never will. And now for the bonus tip that professional plumbers swear by. Before you wrap your next fitting, try this. Lightly drag the edge of the tape roll across the threads before you start wrapping. You are not applying tape yet. You are just feeling for any rough spots, burrs, or debris that could cut through the tape as you wrap. If the tape snags or tears, you know you need to clean those threads first with a stiff wire brush or a rag. This one quick check takes about 5 seconds, and it tells you instantly whether your threads are ready for a clean wrap or whether you are about to waste your time taping over a problem. It is the kind of habit that separates a weekend warrior from someone who gets the job done right the first time. Before you go, I want to make sure you know about my complete guide, the Ultimate Plumbing Playbook. It goes way deeper than we can in a single video, with 85 pages covering everything from clearing any clog to replacing your own water heater. If you want to stop wasting money on simple fixes, this book is for you. Just scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description to get your copy. Thanks for watching. And if you have not already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next one.